Okay, I get it. Price discounting is a fact of life for so many sellers in their deal negotiations. But if you are giving away big round number discounts like your standard 5, 10, 20% discounts, you are giving away needless revenue, my friends. And in this session, I'm going to show you how to practice a tactic I refer to as deliberate discounting, which is not only going to save you a ton of revenue in your quota, but it's going to actually increase your customer's level of satisfaction with the entire process. Welcome back to the Sales Lab, another episode of Sales Lab Live. My name is David Bremer, and with month end, with quarter end coming up, I know for a lot of organizations, this is going to be a very timely topic. How do we actually, and this is kind of at a higher level from a negotiation standpoint, what are we trying to do? We're always trying to kind of get more of what we want from our deal negotiations while giving away less of, the things that we hold dear, and in many cases, that's revenue. At the same time, it's a balancing act, right? We can't always go hard at our customers because it's actually going to erode their level of satisfaction with the process. Negotiation is a very emotional process, just like everything else in selling and buying. And so we want to actually have our customers be happy with the outcome while not giving away too much needless revenue. One of the biggest challenges, though, is that as a seller, when we pick these like general round numbers, 5, 10, 15, 20%, whatever it is, it feels sometimes to the customer arbitrary, right? And when the discounting practice seems arbitrary to the customers, they sometimes feel like they can kind of get away with more, meaning like, oh, you should be able to give me more because you're just going on these kind of, regular, normal, even increment numbers. And so one of the tactics that I practice, and I'm not to unnecessarily get into slideage here, here's what we're going to talk about. This idea of being able to close more and actually retain more revenue by doing this tactic I refer to as deliberate discounting. One of the tactics that I talk about in my negotiation course is this concept, is what I refer to as giving in slowly, right? Now, if you want to check out, I have a whole article about it with a bunch of tactics around this concept of giving in slowly. And so just to kind of take a step back for a second, because this idea of deliberate discounting is one of these things that we can do to actually give in slowly to our customers. And so David, what's the whole point of giving in slowly? Well, the reality is in life, as in sales and in buying, people don't appreciate what they get too easily, right? If you've ever been in kind of a situation, let's say you're applying for a job and the people who are hiring you say like, oh, what are your salary expectations for this job? And you say, oh, I was hoping for like $85,000 a year. And they say, okay. And you're saying to yourself, shit, I should have asked for more. That was too easy, right? People don't appreciate what they get too easily. By the same token, if they said, well, I don't know if we can do 85, we can probably do like 79 is probably the closest we can get. And then if you negotiated up and got to like 81, 82, you would feel like you're the hero and you got the deal of the week. And it's this idea again that people don't appreciate what they get too easily. And this is actually quite interesting because there's some really interesting science behind it. Without getting into all of the details, I'm going to quote something from the great Chris Voss in his book, Never Split the Difference, which I know a lot of people have read. And what he says, and I want you to kind of internalize this, what he says in the book, he says, researchers have found that people getting concessions often feel better about the bargaining process, like when they get those concessions as a result of bargaining, versus people who were given a single firm fair offer right off the bat. And before I get into kind of the second part of the statement, so, if you chiseled me down to from 79 to 82, you're going to feel really good versus if I just agreed to 85 right off the bat. And the funny thing is, let's get into the second part of this quote, they even feel better when they end up paying more and receiving less than they otherwise might. So in the case of our job, we might actually feel better, which we do, when we kind of, worked to get that 82K versus if we got the 85K right off the bat. And the same thing holds true when it comes to discounting practice, meaning, let's say you were negotiating with me and I was, you wanted, let's say a 20% discount. And I'm like, oh, 20%, I don't know if I can make 20%. Like, I might be able to do like a 12, like that's probably the most I can get approval for. And then if you somehow, kind of worked me up to like 14%, you would actually, so back to the quote, you would actually end up paying more, right? And receiving less than you otherwise might, but you actually feel better about the process, right? Because we don't like it when things are just kind of arbitrary. We want reasons for things. We want certainty. This kind of goes back to a whole lot of concepts that we talk about on this channel. around this concept of certainty and the emotion that plays a part in every selling interaction. So let's take a step back now. Now you're the seller and you're interacting with a buyer who's looking for some kind of price concession. Now, what I would also say is that we don't want to give unilateral concessions. So this is under the assumption that you're already kind of getting something in return for the discount you're providing, meaning there's no version of this where it's just like the just make it cheaper model, right? Like we want to get something, and sometimes those things can be, this is a whole other, by the way, this is going to be a whole other video, like what do we want in return? But let's say, for example, you've agreed that there's going to be no unilateral concession here, like you were giving up something, which is revenue, and maybe you're getting something in return, right? Like maybe a longer contract, maybe, maybe some marketing, a testimonial from the customer. And so when it comes to the actual discounting practice itself, I want you to think about, rather than moving down or up in kind of even increments, well, I can give you a 5, 10, 15, 20% discount. I want you to actually start picking deliberate numbers, right? What about a 3% discount? Maybe a 3.5% discount, maybe a 5.25% discount. But I also want you to have reasons why you've picked the numbers that you have. Because again, if people understand that the reason you're picking these numbers is for, there's some rationale behind it. Maybe there's some kind of approval matrix, maybe there's kind of the historical precedent, whatever it is, then they will be more comfortable with the numbers you're providing them. And I want to give you like a quick exercise kind of workbook. And I'll try to make this workbook available after our session today, so you can kind of just download it and fill this out for you. But I kind of just want you to think about a matrix that kind of looks like this, right? I want you to compare, because there's a couple different flavors of this. I want you to compare what a matrix would look like if you were doing like a straight percentage discount, and what a matrix would look like if you were doing a dollar discount. And I kind of want you to compare what these discounts would look like in dollars versus percentages, because sometimes we tend to negotiate in terms of percentages. Meanwhile, negotiating in dollar values might actually generate more satisfaction, and it might actually save you from giving away needless revenue. So here's kind of like the exercise. So let's say, for example, you sell a product, and the metric that you sell your product based on the pricing is a price per user. And let's say your standard price per user is $125. Maybe it's $125 a month, $125 a year. I kind of think about my experience at Salesforce in mind. And back, when I was at Salesforce, we had a standard price for our kind of standard enterprise license was $125 per user per month. Now, if you think about giving away discounts, and let's say those discounts were these kind of nice round percentage discount increments, like 10 to 25% here. What I'm showing you in the matrix is here's what those discounts would actually look like in real dollars. Because again, as a sales rep, you have a quota in real dollars, right? Companies don't talk in percentages, they talk in terms of revenue in dollars. So I want you to be cognizant of the actual money, the dollars you're giving away when you provide this magnitude of percentage discount. At the same time, I want you to kind of look at the other side of the matrix. What if instead of giving away a flat percentage discount, we started giving away dollars instead? So instead of $125, it's going to be $120, right? Or $115. And in the mind of the customer, if I have a $125 price and I give you $5 off, it still feels good. It's like this, this kind of whole dollar kind of increment. It's, it's moving the digits on the right-hand side. Maybe you give a $10 increment, right? But you'll see here, as I compare these two values, if I give what might be a moderate 15% discount on a deal, so maybe not the most I could potentially give, but 15%, not bad, not the best, it's still like $18.75 per license on this revenue. However, if I were to give even, for example, a $10 discount, which actually seems in the mind of a customer substantial, you can see it's like half the discount, right? And depending on how you're kind of structuring your deal, you can present it in one way or another to the customer. If, for example, 8% gives this sense of deliberateness and it creates satisfaction in the mind of the customer, share that. If the $10 is more compelling to the customer, share that. Again, I'm not here to tell you like exactly what's going to be right for your business, but I just want you to think about these practices and how you might moderate them depending on the price of the product you sell. Now, I'll give you another example here. Let's say now $125 per user per month might be like a big number for you, but you might be working in an environment where you're selling something that's less expensive, like a $2, $5, $7 price per user per month. There's lots of products out there that are like that. Again, I want you to take a look at how this discount might play out across each of these matrices. So for example, sometimes when we offer something that's $5, we tend to want to go down in increments of like, well, I'll give you $1 off or $1.50 off. Like you see how I'm going down in these kind of, dollar increments that actually end up being actually quite high in terms of a relative percentage. Versus if I said, well, on a $5 a month per user per month, I could probably do like 20 cents off or 45 cents off or 50 cents off. You can see if I compare these two numbers that the relative magnitude of going down obviously like $1 is 20%. Even if I go down like 30 cents, 6%, much less. Even if I went down 50 cents, we're talking like a 10% discount. So the take-home message here, just to kind of bring it all back to the beginning, is if you want to preserve the amount of revenue that you're giving away needlessly in deals, my advice to you is practice this concept of deliberate discounting. Take a look at the product you're selling, throw it into the matrix, take a look at what discounts actually look like in hard dollars across each of those kind of dimensions, and then think to yourself, like, how can I offer the customer something that still feels good in their mind, right? That's kind of relative to either the percentage or the dollar amount that feels good, but still requires you to actually give away less of what you want. That's all I got for you today. Thanks for joining me, and I'll see you next time on Sales Lab Live.